If you were born between 1946 and 1964, this country is about to betray you. Over 72 million boomers are walking straight into a retirement disaster no one's warning you about. Your Social Security check? Slashed by 23% in 8 years. Your 401k? Down 30% if the market dips once. The nursing home bed you might need? Already taken. And your kids? Too broke to help. This isn't fear porn, it's the math. If you think you're safe, you're already behind. Because this isn't just the worst retirement crisis in US history, it's the one no one's escaping. Stay with me, because I'm about to show you what's coming next. The boomer cost of living is skyrocketing, while their incomes are locked in 1995. Here's something no one's telling boomers at the dinner table or across Fox News panels. Their fixed retirement income isn't just stretched thin, it's being devoured. While everyone debates whether inflation is coming down, the prices that boomers actually face, not Tesla stock or AI hype, but the real day-to-day stuff like rent, gas, heating, groceries, and prescription drugs, have quietly exploded over the last 5 years. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Consumer Price Index for essentials like shelter, medical care, and food at home has outpaced COLA, cost of living adjustments, increases in Social Security every single year since 2020. What does that mean in plain terms? It means a retired couple collecting $3,000 a month in Social Security is living in a 2025 world with a 2010 income. And the scariest part? That number's not budging. Because once you're on fixed income, you don't get a raise, you don't get bonuses, you don't get promoted, you're locked. Meanwhile, their property taxes are climbing, their HOA fees are spiking, their insurance premiums have doubled in some regions due to climate disasters, and Medicare doesn't cover everything, not even close. A Kaiser Family Foundation study found that retirees on Medicare still spend an average of $6,663 out of pocket per year, not including long-term care. And here's the twist. Most boomers don't realize the silent inflation on their largest expense, housing, is setting them up for a financial ambush. Rents for senior living apartments have jumped 17% since 2021 alone. And if you're one of the 22 million older adults who rent instead of own, you're now seeing monthly increases that make moving impossible and staying dangerous. But wait, there's more. Many boomers refinanced into variable rate mortgages during the low-interest years of the 2010s, and now, with interest rates doubled, those payments are climbing while their income stays flat. How do you bridge that gap? Most don't. They cancel dental visits, they skip meals, they delay replacing their car's tires. This isn't some hypothetical crisis coming in 2040. It's here now, and the system is too calcified to adjust quickly. Every day that the cost of living creeps higher without income keeping pace, boomers lose another inch of their financial safety net, and once it tears, that's it. There's no backstop, no pension fairy, no golden parachute, just hard landings. 72 million boomers are about to collide with the most broken senior care system in US history. Now let's talk about something you won't hear in campaign speeches, because no one wants to touch this powder keg. The US senior care system is already buckling under pressure, and we haven't even hit the full tidal wave of boomer demand yet. According to the US Census Bureau, by 2030, every single baby boomer will be over 65. That's 72 million aging Americans all hitting the system like a freight train. And here's the horror story. There are only 1.3 million nursing home beds in the entire country. That's it. One for every 55 seniors. And most of them are already taken. The American Healthcare Association warned back in 2023 that staffing shortages and financial losses were forcing more than 400 nursing homes per year to shut down. Why? Because no one wants to do the work. The average nursing assistant earns just $17 per hour while lifting, cleaning, and caring for frail patients in grueling conditions. Meanwhile, Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements haven't kept up with inflation, meaning even the facilities that stay open are cutting corners. Want to know what that looks like? Try one nurse per 60 patients. Try 2-minute diaper changes. Try missed medications. And it's not just nursing homes. Home care is collapsing too. According to PHI National, there's an estimated shortage of over 1 million home health workers needed by 2031. And that's just to maintain current demand. The sad truth is, most boomers are planning to age in place, assuming they'll get in-home care if things go south. But here's what they don't know. It's already unaffordable. The Genworth 2024 Cost of Care Survey puts the average cost of a home health aide at over $6,000 a month for full-time care. And that's not covered by Medicare. So what happens when a frail 75-year-old with mobility issues and early-stage dementia can't find a caregiver? Family steps in, or tries to, but the average family caregiver is now 49 years old, broke, and juggling 2 jobs. This isn't a safety net. It's a black hole. And with boomers flooding into old age faster than we can build beds or hire staff, we're about to see a care crisis unlike anything America has faced before. Buckle up. 401ks have become the greatest financial trap ever set for an entire generation. Here's the trap nobody warned boomers about. Back in the 1980s and 90s, they were sold on the freedom of managing their own retirement through shiny new 401k plans. Out went the dependable pensions their parents relied on, and in came the personal responsibility era. Invest in the market, play your cards right, and ride off into a golf-filled sunset. But that dream, it's crumbling. According to Fidelity's 2024 report, the average 401k balance for boomers aged 65 plus is just $232,610. Now let's break that down. Assuming they draw 4% annually to avoid running out, that's less than $10,000 a year in income, or around $800 a month. Add that to Social Security's average monthly check of $1,907, and you're looking at roughly $2,700 total monthly income. But here's where it gets worse. That 232K average hides a cruel truth. Half of boomers have far less, and 1 in 4 has nothing at all saved. Nothing. Nada. Zip. And you know what else? That 401k, it's still in the market, which means it's exposed to crashes, recessions, inflation shocks, and Wall Street greed. Every time the S&P 500 dips 10%, thousands of retirees panic sell and lock in losses they'll never recover from. It's not freedom, it's a casino. And boomers are sitting at the high-stakes table with everything they own riding on the next earnings call. Even worse, required minimum distributions, RMDs, kick in at age 73, forcing retirees to pull money out, whether the market is up or down, and triggering tax bills they didn't plan for. And many don't realize their 401k withdrawals count as income, pushing them into higher tax brackets, raising Medicare premiums, and slicing into their Social Security checks. It's a vicious loop. What was pitched as empowerment has turned into entrapment. Boomers weren't financial advisors. They were teachers, factory workers, nurses. And now, they're being punished for not having the investment savvy of Wall Street insiders. The 401k system didn't just fail. It shifted all the risk from employer to worker. And now, millions are staring down the barrel of a retirement full of anxiety, not ease. And nobody's coming to bail them out. Social Security is not guaranteed, and boomers are the first generation who might get less than they paid in. Social Security will be there for you. But let me ask you something. Are you absolutely sure that's true? Because buried deep in the Social Security Administration's own 2024 Trustees Report is a chilling forecast. By 2033, just 8 years from now, the Social Security Trust Fund will no longer be able to pay full benefits. Let that sink in. 2033. That's not some distant sci-fi date. That's around the corner for boomers already retired or about to be. After that, benefits are projected to be slashed by 23% unless Congress finds hundreds of billions in emergency funding. And when was the last time Washington solved anything on time? The system was never designed for this. When Social Security began in 1935, life expectancy was 61. Today, it's 77. The math is broken. And to make matters worse, the worker-to-beneficiary ratio has collapsed. In 1960, there were 5.1 workers per retiree. In 2025, that number will be 2.7. It's like trying to support a piano on 2 legs instead of 5. It's going to wobble, and eventually, it's going to crash. And if you think, well, I paid into the system, so it's mine, you might want to double-check the fine print. The Supreme Court ruled in Fleming versus Nestor, 1960, that you have no contractual right to Social Security benefits. That's right. Congress can legally change, reduce, or eliminate your payout. And in a country with a $35 trillion national debt and rising, guess what looks like an easy political target? That's right. Entitlements. Already, lawmakers are floating ideas like means testing. Translation: if you saved, you get punished. Raising the full retirement age past 70, or switching from inflation-based COLAs to chain CPI, which reduces your increases over time. In other words, death by 1,000 cuts. Boomers are stuck in the worst possible spot. They spent 40 years pouring 12.4% of their income into a system that's running out of runway. And the politicians with the power to fix it, they're too scared to touch the third rail. So boomers will be the guinea pigs, the first generation to pay more in than they ever get back. And if the cuts come, and the math says they have to, retirees who were already counting pennies will be counting half pennies. No backup plan, no warning, just a check that suddenly doesn't cover rent. The retirement healthcare time bomb, out-of-pocket costs, could wipe out entire nest eggs overnight. Here's something that's almost too cruel to believe. Boomers can do everything right. They can save, they can downsize, they can stretch their Social Security. And then one medical event wipes out everything. One fall, one diagnosis, one ambulance ride. That's the dark reality of America's retirement healthcare crisis. It's not just broken, it's predatory, and it's about to devour an entire generation's life savings. According to Fidelity's latest retiree healthcare cost estimate, the average 65-year-old couple retiring in 2025 will need $351,000 just to cover healthcare costs through retirement. And no, that doesn't include long-term care. It's just premiums, deductibles, prescriptions, and routine expenses. But here's the nightmare. Medicare doesn't cover everything. In fact, it covers shockingly little. There's no coverage for dental, vision, hearing aids, or most long-term care. And guess what's about to explode? Long-term care. AARP estimates that 70% of people over 65 will need some form of long-term care before they die. And it's not cheap. A private nursing home room now averages over $114,000 a year, according to Genworth. Even assisted living costs more than $60,000. And Medicare doesn't pay a dime. After 100 days, you're on your own. Medicaid only steps in after you've spent down nearly all your assets, which means the moment your spouse enters a nursing home, your entire retirement becomes a countdown clock to zero. And here's the hidden catch. Most boomers aren't sick enough to qualify for Medicaid right away, but not rich enough to pay out of pocket. That's the danger zone, and it's where millions of retirees will get trapped. Even those with Medicare Advantage plans, the ones with TV ads and $0 premiums, are about to get a rude awakening. Those plans often have networks so narrow, hospitals deny care. They delay approvals for MRIs and surgeries. Some even deny coverage for hospital stays, leaving boomers holding five-figure bills. The Kaiser Family Foundation found that 1 in 5 claims from Medicare Advantage were inappropriately denied, leaving seniors with no recourse. And the sicker you are, the worse the denials get. Healthcare isn't just a financial risk, it's the guillotine, and it's already swinging. One surgery, one stroke, one round of chemo. That's all it takes to blow through your 401k, lose your house, and be forced to choose between medication or rent. It's not a what if, it's a when, and no one is warning them loudly enough. The boomer housing trap, asset-rich, cash-poor, and stuck in homes they can't afford to leave. You've probably heard someone say, at least boomers own their homes. And yeah, on paper that's true. More than 79% of baby boomers own property. But what almost no one talks about is how that's turned into a trap, not a lifeline. Because here's the brutal truth. Owning a house doesn't mean you can afford to live in it, or sell it. It just means you're sitting on a brick-and-mortar prison you can't escape without wrecking your retirement. And millions of boomers are about to find that out the hard way. Let's start with the math. Sure, your house may be worth $500,000, but that value means nothing unless you sell. And selling triggers a cascade of consequences. You lose your homestead exemption. You lose stability. You face capital gains taxes if you don't reinvest it properly. and you enter a red-hot rental market where the average one-bedroom apartment for seniors now rents for over $2,600 a month in many urban areas. In other words, selling doesn't set you free. It just moves the burden around. And then there's the upkeep. Boomers are spending an average of $6,000, $12,000 a year on property taxes, insurance, and maintenance alone, and that's assuming nothing breaks. But in aging homes, something always breaks. Roof repairs, HVAC replacement, water heaters, foundation cracks, these aren't rare surprises, they're time bombs. And most retirees don't have $10,000 sitting in cash for emergency repairs. According to the Federal Reserve's 2023 report on household economic well-being, 1/3 of retirees would struggle to cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. And that's terrifying when the water heater goes in January. But what about reverse mortgages? Isn't that the safety valve? Not so fast. Reverse mortgages are often predatory, with high fees, ballooning interest, and rigid terms that can force heirs to sell homes just to settle debts. And guess what? The Department of Housing and Urban Development revealed that over 18% of reverse mortgage borrowers default within 5 years. Why? Because they couldn't keep up with taxes, insurance, or maintenance, all still required. So now you've got a generation that can't downsize affordably, can't afford to age in place, and can't access their equity without getting scammed. They're stuck in homes they own, but can't escape, can't afford, and can't leverage safely. It's wealth they can't touch, while groceries, meds, and property taxes drain what little they have left. That's not financial security. That's a velvet-lined coffin. They were told, work longer. But no one wants to hire a 70-year-old with back pain. Let's be real. This next one hits like a freight train because it's the lie boomers were sold for decades. If you didn't save enough, just work a few extra years. Push retirement to 70, stay active, stay sharp, and earn more Social Security. Sounds logical. Except it doesn't work. Because what nobody told boomers is that the modern labor market does not want them. Age discrimination is very real, very common, and almost impossible to fight. According to AARP's latest survey, 76% of older workers say they've seen or experienced age discrimination. And that's just the ones who recognize it. Employers might not say it out loud, but they think it all the time. Too slow, too expensive, too close to retirement, too much liability. And you know what? They act on it. Job listings coded with phrases like digital native or high energy team are dog whistles. Applicant tracking software filters out resumes with 30+ years of experience. Some companies even flag Gmail addresses with birth years in them. And even when boomers do get hired, the pay is lower. A National Bureau of Economic Research study showed that older workers face 20 to 35% longer unemployment periods, and when they do find work, it's often part-time, unstable, or underpaid. And physically, let's not kid ourselves. These aren't 70-year-olds doing yoga on the beach. Nearly 60% of boomers report chronic health conditions that limit mobility, focus, or endurance. Back pain, arthritis, vision loss, cognitive decline. The job market isn't kind to that. It demands speed, screen time, tech fluency, multitasking, and 12-hour shifts. This isn't the Sears Roebuck floor in 1980. This is Amazon warehouses, gig work apps, and Zoom meetings. And then there's the emotional toll. Being forced to start over at 68, filling out online applications, fighting for part-time retail jobs against 22-year-olds with iPhones, it breaks people. And that's the real trap. Work longer was never a solution. It was a delay tactic, a government and corporate cop-out to avoid fixing the retirement system. And now, boomers who thought they had one last play, just one more bridge job, are discovering the game changed without them. They're being quietly pushed out, priced out, and overlooked. And no one's going to give them a second act. They're left staring at Indeed job postings, wondering how it all came to this. Boomers are living longer, but with less mobility, more illness, and no money to handle either. You might think that living longer is a blessing, more time with family, more sunsets, more life. But for boomers, it's turning into a slow-motion financial and physical disaster. Because the longer you live in America without money, the more brutal and lonely those extra years become. And we're not talking about living to 100 like it's a Hallmark movie. We're talking about surviving 25-plus years in retirement with mounting health problems, shrinking savings, and a government that's quietly hoping you don't notice it can't afford to support you anymore. The CDC now estimates that the average American turning 65 today will live to at least 84, and that's just the median. Women, even longer. And here's the kicker. Almost all of those additional years are burdened with chronic illness. A full 80% of seniors over 65 have at least one chronic disease, and 68% have two or more. We're talking arthritis, diabetes, COPD, heart disease, conditions that don't just limit quality of life, but require constant, expensive care. Medication co-pays, specialist visits, durable medical equipment, in-home aids, transportation to clinics. It adds up fast. And remember, this is after a career of physical wear and tear. Boomers aren't retiring from ergonomic keyboard offices. They're retiring from warehouses, construction sites, teaching jobs, and second-shift nursing work. By the time they hit 70, many can't walk unassisted, lift heavy groceries, or even drive safely. Yet they're expected to survive another 10, 15, or 20 years in a country where in-home physical therapy can cost $150 a session and isn't fully covered by Medicare. Want to know the most commonplace boomers will end up? Alone. The U.S. Surgeon General declared loneliness an epidemic in 2023, with seniors being the hardest hit. And loneliness isn't just sad, it's lethal. Studies show isolation increases the risk of dementia by 50%, heart disease by 29%, and early death by 32%. Combine that with inadequate care, shrinking finances, and the physical agony of untreated chronic illness, and you've got a slow death sentence stretched over decades. Boomers are surviving longer, but without the dignity, care, or security their parents enjoyed. And the system isn't remotely ready to handle 72 million Americans aging into this reality at once. Living longer in America isn't a blessing anymore. For many boomers, it's a financial prison with no early release. The collapse of the American dream. Boomers were promised prosperity and got a broken economy instead. Let's rip the Band-Aid off this one. Boomers weren't lazy. They weren't reckless. They were lied to. Repeatedly. They were told from the time they were kids that if they worked hard, bought a house, played by the rules, and saved for the future, they'd retire with dignity. But now they're waking up in their 60s and 70s with a horrifying realization. The American dream doesn't exist for them anymore. It's been gutted, outsourced, devalued, and sold off to the highest bidder. And they were the test subjects. You want to know where it started? Wages. From 1945 to the mid-1970s, wages rose in lockstep with productivity. Families could survive and even thrive on a single income. But after 1979, the link was severed. From 1979 to 2023, worker productivity rose 64.9%, but wages rose only 17.5%, adjusted for inflation. That's nearly 50% of value created by workers, siphoned off to CEOs and shareholders. Boomers didn't fail to save. They were robbed of the ability to. Meanwhile, the cost of living exploded. Housing costs grew 121% since 1985, while healthcare rose by more than 240%, and college tuition for their kids up over 100%. They stretched every dollar, took out second mortgages to help their kids go to school, and watched their equity vanish in the 2008 crash. Then, just as the economy started to recover, they were told, "We're switching from pensions to 401ks. You're on your own now. Oh, and by the way, we're outsourcing your job. Good luck finding another one at 59. Now, they're carrying debt into retirement, working gig jobs at 71 just to cover groceries, and wondering why the future feels like quicksand. The Pew Research Center found that over 50% of boomers expect to rely primarily on Social Security in retirement, a system that's underfunded and politically endangered. And here's the gut punch. Boomers were the first generation to retire into a service-based, debt-fueled asset bubble economy, not the post-war manufacturing boom their parents enjoyed. They're not living in the land of opportunity. They're clinging to the edge of a country that changed the rules halfway through the game. And nobody gave them a second chance. The American dream didn't just slip away, it was dismantled in real time. And boomers watched the scaffolding fall with their names still etched on it. No one is coming to help. The safety nets are fraying, the family support is gone, and boomers are being left behind. Here's the part that breaks people, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, because it's not just about money anymore. It's about abandonment. It's about waking up at 74 in a quiet house with a bad hip, bills piling up, mail you're scared to open, and the sinking realization that no one is coming. Not the government, not your job, not even your family. And that is the darkest truth of all. See, boomers grew up believing that there was always a net. You worked hard and there'd be a pension. You paid taxes and Social Security would be there. You raised your kids, and when the time came, they'd look out for you. But now, the pension is gone. Social Security's future is on life support. And those kids, most of them are buried under their own mountain of debt, rent, inflation, and burnout. They're not living in your basement. They're struggling in a one-bedroom apartment with 2 roommates and a dog. They love you, but they're just surviving. And the government? Let's be honest. They don't even know you're still here. More than 9 million seniors live in poverty. Over 15 million boomers are food insecure, skipping meals, or choosing between insulin and groceries. And yet Congress can't pass basic elder care funding. Politicians talk endlessly about helping families, helping workers, helping innovation. But when was the last time you heard someone say, "We need to take care of our seniors who worked 40 years and built this country"? When? Exactly. Even nonprofit resources are stretched to the breaking point. Meals on Wheels has waiting lists in over 1,000 U.S. counties. Senior housing assistance? The average wait time is 3 to 5 years. And retirement communities? Most cost more than $4,000 a month and don't even take Medicare. So where does that leave boomers? Alone. Not metaphorically, literally. The U.S. Census Bureau says 1 in 3 boomers live alone, and among women over 75, it's nearly 50%. They face rising disability rates, diminishing independence, and no clear backup plan. And when things go wrong, a fall, a flu, a broken car, a power outage, there's no cousin coming over, no kid rushing across town, just silence. This is the end result of decades of economic neglect, policy betrayal, and social atomization. A generation that gave everything, and now finds themselves standing on a cliff edge, staring into the abyss with no one to pull them back. Because that's the final gut punch. No one is coming. Not the state. Not the safety net. Not the American dream. And unless something drastic changes, fast, boomers won't just face a tough retirement. They'll be the first generation in American history to outlive their money, outlive their support, and outlive the system that promised to care for them. The truth? Most boomers won't die of old age. They'll die broke, alone, and forgotten by the very system they built. If you think this ends with Social Security and a rocking chair, you weren't paying attention. This is the collapse of a generation, and if you're not preparing now, no one's coming to save you. Hit like. Share this with someone who still believes they'll figure it out. Because by then, it'll be too late.